Hi folks, well, I'm going to try and demonstrate this upside down drawing type of thing. You may have seen some of the group doing it, and it's really just the best way to understand drawing and the best way to get started, and it's a real confidence booster because you can get some tremendous results for people who are not familiar or haven't been drawing that long. So we're going to start here. And I have, as you see, I have created two grids. These match. Those grids, those lines are going to help plot the way around the drawing. So they're going to be very, very useful. Now I am going to start in the third drawing in, and I think what I might do here is just turn this up the other way, because I think it doesn't quite match. Yeah, that's better. So here we go. I'm going to start the drawing, as I say, down here, and I think the first little mark, if I can get this digital setup proper, I think is about there. And then if you notice into the next square, just slightly above the halfway mark, and then as I work across, now I'm going to join those. You just have to use a little bit of coordination there and establish those lines. I first came across this technique from a book written by a woman who used to be an art teacher but is now a very successful author worldwide, and her name is Betty Edwards. She's an American, and her research, her change in how she taught drawing and this upside down thing came out of her research into how the brain works, and she observed a certain way through after she realised that scientists realised that the creative side of the brain is on the right hand side. That's the side that we tap into when we draw and paint. So she came up with a number of these exercises, and the upside down drawing one I think is about the most entertaining. She has other very good exercises, and the book's called Drawing on the Right Hand Side of the Brain, and it can be got at any bookstore anywhere. It's a very, very successful book. As you see here, what I'm doing is now we're going up into the second set of I'll just zoom in a little bit here. It's just getting the camera in the right position. So I'm going to try and recreate that. It crosses the line and that square up about there. So I'm going to join those two together, and then it exits that one about there, and then bends in a little bit. So you see the way I'm talking here. I'm talking here about lines where they intersect the grid, what angle. That one goes off there, look at a few degrees, and it goes right up to about there, comes in here on the square, about that much. And the Betty Edwards system is used now by most art teachers to teach what was previously pretty much unteachable. I think drawing and painting are, in a sense, they are visual mediums, and it is difficult sometimes to verbalize, to put into words exactly what it is going on and how you are doing it. So she came up with this notion that if you turn a thing upside down, it becomes a series of lines. And it doesn't matter what you're drawing, and that's why to demonstrate this I usually use portraits, because people have this notion that somehow a portrait is the hardest thing, and it is a very difficult thing to undertake. I'm just going to, all the time I'm talking to you here, it's a bit awkward talking and drawing, but you get used to it. I'm kind of using the same method. I'm looking at the next square where the line intersects, about there, and then I'm joining up the dots kind of thing. Now, that line goes the whole way across that, joins up there. And she also came up with the notion that really drawing is a skill. And most of us can pick up skills. Most of us have during our lives. We've learned to walk, we've learned to talk. And I think a skill a lot of people share that people have learned is driving. Driving's a skill. And you certainly do not expect to sit at the driving seat of a car and just simply drive like a veteran, get the whole thing straight away. First of all, there's an awful lot to learn about the highway code, what you can do at roundabouts and traffic lights and what you can't do legally. You have to get all that under your belt. So, and none of us should feel in any way inadequate or ashamed when we start out on the path of learning a new skill like drawing. Because it's just like driving. We all start the same way. It's a skill. And the way I like to think of a skill is something that takes about 10-20% skill and learning, and about 80% perspiration, 80% practice. Practice. You couldn't practice enough on this type of thing. If we were musicians and we were learning to play the guitar, which is quite a difficult thing to do. I remember when I first started, it took me a while to get any kind of a decent noise out of the thing. But if somebody had said to you, "Oh, don't do that," you have to grow calluses on your fingertips. You'd say, "Thanks for the warning." And very few, well, a lot fewer, I think, would end up playing the guitar at all. Let me just shift this camera a little bit, Erwin. Let's see what I'm doing there at the bottom. So we all start off the same way in a skill, with a little bit of trepidation, but gradually, and there is, I've heard people say, no. Well, I think I get the impression that they're maybe afraid of failure, or failing in front of people in a social setting or whatever. But everybody's the same. I wouldn't worry too much about it. One of the other things that Betty Edwards did, perhaps if I can just show you here, there is little shapes that occur. I think here, this is a little shape. This is called negative space in art. And the line helps, of course, and the grid helps, but so does seeing it as a little shape, because suddenly you think, well, I can draw little shapes. I mean, there's no great difficulty there. And that helps as well. And she came up with that concept as well about negative space. And it complements the way our brain likes to function. And when we're doing something like drawing, there is a particular set of parts of the brain that are engaged, and as was discovered, mostly on the right-hand side. So what we have to do is we have to learn to strengthen that right-hand creative side, so we can get better at the skill, we can improve. And that's something that she included in her classes. So I'm just, again, feeling my way around this, heading over there, look. Just let's get that back in case we miss it. Heading over there back towards where that line intersects that square at that point. And then the next one is just there. And there we go. So getting back to the guitar analogy, it does take a while. Piano, guitar, violin, any instrument at all. But I think a lot of it's got to do with positive attitude too. You say to yourself, no, I really want to do this. If you think about, am I getting any better all the time, you're going to lose confidence in yourself and your ability. So the best thing to do is learn to do this, because hopefully, said he, when you turn it the right way up, after you've finished, you're really surprised at how well you've done. I mean, to draw a portrait just like, if it was, let's say it was the right way up, it's quite difficult. You know, I mean, it's a challenge. It's not something that's easily mastered or easily done. But when you see how close you get here to some really complicated parts of a drawing, really complicated, like a portrait, and you see how close you get to it, without really having consciously thought or talked yourself out of it, I suppose, it really gives you a confidence boost, and that's what you need when you're learning. And the point is really, look, drawing, and if I was drawing from life, if I was drawing a still life, like, you know, I was doing a vase of flowers or whatever it happens to be, whatever takes your fancy, I use this technique as well. I just see everything in front of me as a series of lines. I forget that it's a vase, or I forget that, and I look for ways to plot across the drawing and look for comparisons like this. And a lot of artists will use grids and all sorts of drawing aids, right? Since an artist always have, by the way, people say, oh, that's cheating, you know. No, well then you've never made any money at art. all professions have employed labour-saving time and time-saving methods and devices, and art is no exception. Even with the invention of the camera, artists were using them from near enough day one, because they didn't have to sit in front of somebody for weeks or months, as in the case of a portrait, and make, you know, numerous sketches and trying to get a likeness. They could just take a really good photograph of the idea behind how they'd like to pose the person, and take that back to a studio, and in the comfort and the warmth of a studio, they could then, you know, reference and continue the work. So as you see here, I'm sort of moving across the drawing as well. I was just trying to get that. And even sort of talking as I draw, it's just a little awkward too, and sometimes I'm drifting. You'd probably say I'm drifting altogether, but it's and I have to keep sort of refocusing back on where I am in relation to the grid, and how long that line is, what angle does it bend off at. As you can see, I'm just working here in this square at the moment, and just trying to get that mapped out so I can accurately depict what's there. So, drawing is, everybody wants to paint, I think. People like to just go straight to the painting. Wow, that good, eh? And then they wonder, you know, why in the middle of a painting they lose their way or find it difficult. Because basically you've built a house with no foundation. Drawing and painting are two different techniques. They're two different functions. A drawing is really about creating a map, plotting where things are accurately. Because if you try and do that with paint and brushes afterwards, you find yourself, it's no fun. When you're painting, you need to paint, sounds obvious, and when you're drawing, you need to draw. Somebody once said, I think it was Albrecht Dürer, the famous German Renaissance painter, artist. He said, I draw with a needle, meaning, you know, a scribe or a pencil, and I paint with a broom, because, you know, you use big blocks and areas, put in colours that are the same and so on, and it's a different tool set as well. So you don't really want to be doing two things at the one time. You don't want to be drawing and painting. And there, a little bit tricky, that one. So whenever I'm doing these exercises, I see them as like a musical practice. Some people think, oh God, I have to get this drawing. It has to be something worthy. I have the whole of art history on my back. No, you don't. It's just do 100 of these. And if you're not too proud of the first ones, then put them in the bin. Nobody will ever know, and you got away with it. But I would highly recommend that you let your family and you show them to people, because as I say, you need to be able to start off getting a result, seeing that you could progress, and getting an interest in getting better, like any skill that you really want to do. So here we go. We're still plotting. I'm still plotting my way across here, and just simply trying to replicate the little lines that I see in each square, and trying to calculate exactly where it is that things intersect across the grid. And this type of pace, by the way, is another thing you really, I think, need to get used to whenever you're drawing or painting. And that is the length of time it can take to produce something nice. There is no shortcut to nice in anything. But the more you do, the more practice you have at something, you will get better. So we're coming, that looks pretty much like it's going to be a straight line across, and kind of join it up there. Some lines are easier than others, but don't panic. You have to develop a certain discipline. And people talk to me about a very buzzing keyword these days, which is mindfulness. And as an artist, I can tell you, I have experienced that all my life. The world stops when you get absorbed in something. But you have to get absorbed. There's no point in just having a go for 5 minutes. I've seen projects that have huge amounts of money that somebody tried something once, and whoever has a little box ticked, and unfortunately, having the experience of something, that's fine, no harm in that at all. But you do have to try on your own time, and you have to try methodically. I mean, the exercises that you're trying have to be worthwhile. And what this does when you draw upside down like this, and you do a lot of it, is you become unconscious about how good you become. Nothing gets in the way. You get good at it, and the reward comes when you turn it the other way up, and everybody's going, wow, you can draw. Yeah. Same way everybody goes, wow, when you get your license in a car, you can drive. And they're right. Because it's not always easy got. Not always easy at all. And you can overthink things. You want to improve, and you think there's a shortcut to it. There isn't. I think we live today in society in a kind of a instant gratification kind of a world, where people want things and they want them now. But certain things, I mean, look at the age, look how long we're painting and drawing. First spray paintings were done in caves. People wanted to record themselves to say, I was here, and they'd blow paint over their hand. You see the outline of who they were, and it's a trace of someone who lived 10, 15,000 years ago or something. It's quite amazing. But even then, we were expressing ourselves through the medium of drawing and painting, giving, our testament to what we see in the world. Trying to figure the world out, perhaps, by recreating it ourselves. I'm just going to move the canvas, I suppose, maybe down a little. Just bring that into shot, otherwise you don't know what I'm talking about here. So, and this is really worth doing. I mean, and you do not have to come in and say to your, our tutor or whatever, you don't have to say to me, what do I do today? Because I'd say, I thought you were going to get to grips with learning how to draw, which is very valuable, because when you come to paint, you should already know how to draw, because you're going to need that in order to do the drawing underneath your painting. So you say, I'm going to do another one of these. I know the basics now. I know how to grid out the paper myself, and I'm going to do more of them. I'm going to get good at it. And it's really, that's the equivalent of doing scales on a piano, or learning chords and scales on a guitar. And then you know yourself, once you get that kind of skill under your belt, well, the world's your oyster. So, coming pretty close now. I think I have a bit to do here and there. Down here, yeah, I thought I'd escaped. And it doesn't matter what you're drawing. It doesn't matter what it is you're drawing. It's all just lines of a certain length, veering off at a certain angle, and you can regard it as lines, or you can look for little shapes that you can draw that suddenly help you because you find that easier. Well, I find it easier anyway. And with any luck, let's see, I have a couple of wee details to do here. And we should be pretty much done. I hope. I'm just getting that right. I see another couple of little lines that'll do no harm to put on. That's probably one of the most recognisable faces in the world ever, really, when you think on it. We haven't, television really changed the world. I always say, where would the Beatles have been without TV? If they had developed, say, 10 years beforehand, it would have been radio. We wouldn't have seen their cheeky Liverpool likeable faces. And really it had, it's all time and place too, So, let's see, I think I've bored you enough. I think you've got the basic idea. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flick this up the right way, and let's see what we have. Image, rotate 180. There we are, drawing upside down, and let's make the right way up. And there we are, that's what we've been drawing, folks. And I think if you were, yeah, I can see his, I've left out an eyebrow. But I can draw this right way up as well, because I'm just doing the same thing now. After a while, if, the upside down thing can get a little bit mad after a while. And I think you can turn it right up and add in little details like this that hopefully just tie the whole thing up together. So I see, when I try and talk about this discipline, this skill of drawing upside down, people sort of tend to get a little bit panicky, and they don't really, I think, quite get what I'm saying. So I thought I'll try and demonstrate it. I'll talk you through it. And there was one, he shall remain nameless, but he knows who he is, which I thought was very funny. He showed this to his mother-in-law. He drew it upside down, did a fantastic drawing of Mick here. And then he showed it to his mother-in-law. He was very proud of what he'd done, so he was showing everybody. And afterwards, when he left, she said to the daughter, she said, I didn't want to say there in front of Martin, but that just looked like Mick Jagger or something. So, what more of a compliment could she have given him? So there we are, folks. Let me see if I can get rid of that grid. Nope, got rid of the drawing instead. So there we are. Now I would probably work a little bit more detail around the mouth, and it's all done. That's all line. So the next stage of that would be shading. Usually I'll just put a wee bit in where the teeth separate, and you can see there straight away. But now all I have to start worrying about with shading is just light and shade where that happens. It's not bad effort. I mean, like, you know, and that's the kind of results most people get when they try this as an exercise. And you go home and you show your mother-in-law and all that, carry on, and everybody thinks you're fantastic. So there we are, folks, an upside down drawing of the boy Mick Jagger.